Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Refreshed, a show where we highlight the wonderful people, work, and ideas on the internet. My name is Ana Diaz, and today I am joined by Morgan Sung. Hi, Morgan. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you are a writer and reporter at Mashable. Before we go ahead and get started with today's topic, TikTok, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your work there, your interests, you can also tell us the most ridiculous thing you've seen on the internet this week.
So many truly absurd things. So I write about culture, especially like internet culture and weed and like all the weird, funky stuff that goes along with it. So that kind of encompasses like TikTok and AOC's Twitch stream and memes and, all that weird stuff. I would say the weirdest thing I've seen on the internet today or this week, man, Zoom dick was pretty wild. That wasn't necessarily like the internet, but that was just like classic Twitter being like, oh my God. Someone pulled their dick out. Rudy Giuliani's thing was pretty wild too.
Yeah. It's been there's never a dull week, it seems like.
Not at all. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say the wildest thing I've seen ever.
That's fine.
Online, but
okay. And so I saw that you published a post on AOC's Among Us stream. That's kind of like all the buzz right now, especially in the games community. I feel like it's really like this important moment for games breaking into like wider sort of cultural space. What was your take on it?
So my take, I have a lot of friends who are in esports and a lot of gamer friends. I joke that I'm notoriously anti-gamer because I very rarely play video games myself, but aside from an obscene amount of Animal Crossing. But there's also this big cultural shift in using Twitch as like a form of voter outreach. And I think AOC used that really, really uniquely because Twitch isn't just like a broadcast platform. It's a space to really engage and, interact directly in a way that a lot of politicians can't right now because of the pandemic. They can't have meet and greets, but they can have Twitch streams and read the chat and answer questions. So that's pretty sick.
Yeah. Well, and I saw a friend of the show, McKenna, talking more about how like it's so perfect because like she didn't use Twitch to do a podcast or do something that it's not meant for. She used it like Twitch is meant to watch games, and she used it to play games, and so that's actually like really smart. You're just using the platform for what it was meant to be, and so it kind of like shows her savvy as a young politician.
Youth.
Yeah, as a
right.
youth. We can claim her as a youth, right?
I think so. I think, are we technically the youth still?
I don't know.
I worry every day that we're not.
Yeah, I think that, okay, you want to hear my generational divide between like millennials and Zoomers, because I feel like we're both probably cusp. And like a bunch of people our age are, is that if you listened to Lorde, you're millennial. If you listen to Billie Eilish, you're Zoomer. And that's
a good take, but what if I listen to both?
I do. So I like Billie Eilish and I listen to Billie Eilish, but I don't get the same existential angst. Like I listen to him like, oh, this is good music, But like Lorde, I'm like, oh man, this has got me feeling some kind of way. Like I'm driving through a sad breakup.
I argue that Lorde is like the cusp music because people like true millennials, I think, had like Jesse McCartney and NSYNC and other like early pop. And cuspers had like that shift of like pop going indie going pop. And then, Zoomers are all being sad to Billie. And I thank Lorde for that.
Yeah. Moonface Nick says, I'm 37 and love Lorde. Yeah. I guess we shouldn't just like claim Lorde for ourselves.
I think she's my age. She's 24, right?
Oh, she is.
I think. Is she?
She's young. She's definitely young.
Yeah.
So she might be even younger than that, to be honest.
I know. Every time I see Lorde like doing something incredibly successful, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
out here and we're in the same like age bracket.
But you're also, and it's funny this is coming from you because you're like a very I'd say you're a very prolific writer, especially for your age. You so I kind of your big piece that I first became familiar with your work was your Storm Area 51 write-up. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I kind of had like dropped that in Slack as a joke because I'm based in LA, which is about 6 hours to Vegas, and Storm Area 51 was like 2.5, 3 hours from Vegas. So I dropped it jokingly in Slack, and I was like, haha, they're throwing a music festival, tagged my editors and was like, can I go cover it? And my editors were like, you know what? Yeah, why not? And I was like, wait, actually? Because it kind of fit into like a lot of what I'd been covering already. So it like worked out. And so they were like, yeah, here's a budget. Go hire a freelance videographer you'd be comfortable camping with. I also camp really frequently. So I had all the equipment already and was like, I don't need much. I just need you to let me rent a car and drive out. And
wait, are you old enough to rent a car? You're not old enough to rent a car, though.
And just drive 9 hours into the middle of nowhere and hope for the best. So that was my experience.
Yeah. Wait, and so for the chat, tell them what inspired this music festival. Because I feel it really nicely ties into our theme of the day here. Yeah.
So the music festival was inspired by the Storm Area 51 meme, which was a Facebook event created by like this 21-year-old kid who was like, you can be funny is if we all storm Area 51 because they can't stop all of us. It turns out they can. Yeah. They legally can stop you at the border. I watched people get arrested at the gates. But yeah, so it started as like a whole push to storm Area 51. And then the feds were like, please don't storm Area 51. We will arrest you. We can legally shoot you. So the kid who created it was like, screw this. We're making it a music festival. That also fell through due to other unrelated reasons, I think logistical ones. And so there were actually 3 like feuding music festivals all going out at once that weekend, all in like the same like Vegas, Rachel, Nevada area. So within like 1 3-hour drive from each other. And it was, I think it was a great experience, but also really drew out the most unique people possible.
Yeah, I'm sure you met like a lot of characters there, you know, like, oh, maybe not a lot of news happened, but like it makes for an interesting story.
Really, there were a lot of, there were a lot of people who were, you know, around my age in like their early 20s who were just driving out to do shrooms in the desert and meet cool people and, you know, look at the stars, which was a great, you know, sort of vibe. And then there were people who were genuinely like, yeah, aliens exist. We are celestial bodies. We're all going to be taken away at some point and shipped off to our alien futures. So it was definitely a very unique blend of people, I think. But everyone pretty much was like, yeah, there's probably some sort of life out there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, people are always ready for the extraterrestrial announcement, even with NASA this week, right? That was another thing that happened this week. They're like, yeah, we have a big announcement. Everyone's like, aliens on the moon. And it's like, there probably aren't aliens on our moon because the announcement was moon related. But it just like, I feel like that is always fodder for like viral internet content.
Oh, yeah. And, like, the guy from Blink 182 runs, like, an alien institute that exposed, like, hidden or secret files or videos that the Navy had of UFOs. I don't know. I love alien.
And I would be remiss. So if anyone, I swear we're going to get on topic soon here. But if anyone's interested in hearing more on this topic, actually, Ben Hansen interviewed a journalist who covers alien news for MinnMax. So go check that out. She wrote an entire book on it. And okay, so we're here today to talk about something. It's kind of funny. Like I was asking you to be on to talk about TikTok because it's so ginormous. And so like, obviously it's like, okay, it's this giant thing that can't really be pinned down. But I think it'll make for a great conversation. very adjacent to memes, very adjacent to games culture. It's kind of like games culture I see is like kind of up and coming within it. But, you know, can you summarize really briefly? We have kind of a pretty wide audience here, a lot of like parents, older people who might not be familiar with the platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is TikTok? The big question.
Oh, man. Okay. That is a huge question.
Yeah.
Let me think. So TikTok is at its core a video sharing platform. But it's really blown up because of, one, how it kind of filled the void that Vine had left when Vine went down.
Right.
But I think Vine really laid the foundation for TikTok. But TikTok is different. It's very unique in that its algorithm is so curated to each individual user to like arguably a very creepy degree. Mm-hmm. But it's also really good at figuring out the exact content you want. So the longer you use TikTok and the more frequently you engage with it, the more the algorithm will be like, this is what you will like, and this is what you probably don't like, so we won't show this to you. But you'll probably like this very specific niche interest that you haven't like thought about in years. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much TikTok.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I was writing notes on like topics to hit, and I was like, weird algorithm, question mark, question mark, because that is such, I think, like a unique experience about TikTok. Whereas like with Vine, it was less curated. Obviously I follow people, but like a lot of what I saw was just like generally viral stuff. Or I saw it in the form of YouTube compilations of Vines. Whereas like TikTok, I do not, like, it is only through, you know, my For You page, which is, for folks unfamiliar, that's like the main feed. And it's how TikTok like feeds you your content. It's like any, you know, like your Facebook main feed or your Twitter feed. And so it sort of collects information based on your likes, who you follow, et cetera, et cetera. And
even like as like the amount of time you spend watching one video, it pulls information from that and shows you more content based on information.
So is it the creepiest platform?
I mean, I think every social media platform is kind of creepy, honestly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh my God, TikTok's collecting your data. But so is Twitter and Facebook and like everything else you use. Venmo probably has your information.
Yeah.
It's just that TikTok comes with music. Yeah. You know?
Well, something hilarious is yesterday I watched this like 30-minute video by ex-Viner. I'm horrible. I'm forgetting his name now. By an ex-Viner who went to make, his goal was to make like a viral TikTok sound. And to do it, he didn't want to get any clout from like, because he's like a well-known YouTuber and Viner. It's like, okay, zero clout, want this to go on its own merit. But the algorithm figured out his real identity. And started like recommending his fake TikTok to like his real TikTok's followers, so everyone found him out.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Or it's either Danny Gonzalez or Drew Gooden.
It's Danny Gonzalez. Yeah, it's Danny Gonzalez. Yes.
Yeah. I know they have a whole bit about the fact that they're not the same person, but I genuinely do confuse them all the time, and I feel really bad.
Yeah, no, this was Danny Gonzalez with his alter ego Ned Flame, who was trying to drop like the dopest TikTok track of 2020, but the algorithm found out first and started recommending his alter ego Ned Flame to all his followers on this Danny Gonzalez page. And so it's this long video. Is like, he wasn't able to make this song viral, but he's like, but I did learn something about this platform. It is that the algorithm is very, very smart.
Freaky.
So, okay. What kinds of, I mean, now TikTok, I feel like, has everything. But its origins are sort of kind of like nerdier and geekier. Like I remember back in the day when TikTok, it was a lot of cosplay, a lot of like really interestingly edited dance videos. But what do popular TikToks look like today? Who's the most popular TikToker?
Oh, good question. I think, okay, so based on numbers, the most popular TikToker is probably Charli D'Amelio. Yeah. The 16-year-old dancer who like just blew up in the last 2 years for, you know, coming up with these really creative dances. And then there are a whole lot of TikTokers who don't necessarily have that background. Like you said, TikTok was known for its nerdier kind of like cringier origins where it used to be Musical.ly, the Chinese dance app. So it was that app where people would like lip sync to music or lip sync to videos, and people would come up with choreography based on that. And then when it was acquired, or when it became TikTok, it kind of blew up it as like a combination dance app, but also filling that void of comedy sketches that Vine left behind. So, yeah.
So Ian T. Clark in the chat says, I just signed up for a TikTok account this week. I'm afraid. Do you have any advice for new TikTokers here? Either maybe making them, but also just like being on the app, you know, folks who are new to it.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're just following people on TikTok, definitely make an effort to engage with the content you actually want to see. Like we said, TikTok is really smart, and it's terrifying, but you can kind of learn to work with it, where if you really like embroidery videos, like I'm a nerd, I watch a lot of embroidery videos.
Yes, I'm also on embroidery TikTok. This is amazing.
I don't have the patience to do all that embroidery, but I just love, it's like ASMR, but for your like eyes, you know?
Yeah. And the sewing videos where they fit jeans, incredible, with like the red lace.
I know. Yeah. It's so cool. So I would definitely suggest, making an effort to search out the content you actually want to see. You know, like when I first started getting really into dyeing my hair, I would watch a lot of hair dyeing videos, and I would specifically like click on hashtags about hair dyeing, or hitting like on videos about hair dyeing, sharing videos, making an effort to watch a video all the way through to the end. Yeah. So really just like engaging with the platform will curate your TikTok experience more. If you're creating TikToks, don't be racist or homophobic. Yeah. Don't be a dick, Don't be ableist.
Good.
You'll probably get canceled.
Yeah.
And TikTok has like just the most like chef's kiss way of canceling people.
As compared to other platforms, would you say isn't it a much cleaner cancel?
I think it's meaner.
Oh, it's mean. Oh, because would you say it's younger people on the platform?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're getting canceled by your high school bully. Like, they'll not only cancel you for being, like, trash and ableist or, racist or homophobic, they'll be like, you're being problematic and you're ugly. It's like, I mean, good for them for setting the, stage for a more inclusive society, but it's definitely
terrifying.
I kind of admire it. Yeah. I live in more fear of getting canceled by TikTok teens than I do with like, conservative MAGA people.
Yeah. I mean, there's something about I'm really close with like one of my 16-year-old cousins, and there's something about the way that she disses people that really gets to the heart of your insecurities. It's like a sixth sense. It's terrifying. Adam Walker, Texas Ranger, says, I haven't downloaded TikTok and probably won't. I really have had a hard time getting past the story that got out months ago about how they were only pushing forward and promoting content creators that met a certain kind of beauty standards, light skin, thin, etc. I realize this isn't the fault of any content creators, and I think that they curated it this way. Yeah, that is a part of the algorithm, right? It's like, I think it's interesting because a lot of times with these platforms, like the language and like the understanding behind it, it's like, oh, this is very democratic. Like anyone can have access to this. Anyone can make videos. And if you're good enough, like you'll get noticed. But this is a corporation that's like control, right? Like setting preferences.
Yeah, definitely. I would argue that it's part the corporation and also part just like implicit bias when it comes to the algorithm. So the way TikTok's algorithm works is kind of wild, but it basically shows like when you post a video, it'll show that video to like a small group of people, and if enough people engage with it, it'll show that to like a larger group of people, and it'll just like keep showing that video to like larger and larger groups of people, but and then until it's like viral. And with implicit bias, one, it's probably more likely to show a video of someone who is conventionally attractive and fits into Eurocentric beauty standards to a larger group of people. And two, it's more likely that that larger group of people will engage with that video because the creator has like fits into that Eurocentric beauty standard.
Would you say then, like, would smaller creators, though, would they have an easier chance of getting seen because the algorithm is so effective at, like, almost like creating these little silos of interest?
I don't know. That's a really hard question.
Yeah. Because it's almost seemed like it's been pretty decent at curating specific fandoms or interests. Like you were saying, like embroidery or hair dyeing, like it can find and identify those people. Or like if there's a specific fandom, so like, I don't know, a specific anime, for example, it can like identify that pretty quickly and just like toss you in. It's like, oh, okay, great. Like here are like all the queer anime watchers. Like here you go. And like, we'll put Naruto over here. We'll put Haikyuu over there. Like, would you say, okay, I guess this leads into another question is, so, were you involved at all, like, sort of, like, Tumblr fandom, Tumblr blogging space?
Oh, yeah.
How would you say, like, the experiences of, like, finding similar interests is, like, on TikTok, I don't know, it's more curated, so do you feel like it isolates people more quickly?
I think it's different because on Tumblr, I wasn't really exposed to new things unless someone I followed reblogged it or interacted with it. Whereas on TikTok, it's TikTok itself feeding me new information. So, for example, like, I'm trying to think of something really weirdly niche. I started following someone for their gardening. And within a week, I was on, like, mushroom foraging TikTok. And I don't think I would have necessarily been exposed to that if I hadn't, like, on a platform like Tumblr, which doesn't necessarily feed you information. It only shows you what people you follow post. So going back to, like, small creators, I don't know. Like, no one really, like, TikTok, when the US government started really cracking down on it, was finally somewhat transparent about its algorithm and how the algorithm works. But it still didn't fully explain, like, why it shows certain people some information and other people's different information. So I think with smaller creators finding success, it really does seem like a lottery system. And I don't know if there's like I don't really know if there's a way to rationally explain it, you know?
So you mentioned about sort of like government crackdowns on TikTok. Obviously TikTok has been in the news a ton recently because it's owned by a Chinese company and they almost quote unquote, I guess, got rid of it. What sorts of like regulations and like things have you seen on the app? I know, like, for example, that with COVID related posts, there's sometimes like a little tag that sort of redirects you and says like, hey, if you want the most up-to-date information on COVID, go here. Are there sort of like any other interesting examples of like regulation on the platform?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a new feature around like the US elections and, you know, them adding a little banner to the bottom of anything that has to do with the election, whether you tag the election, whether you tag a candidate, whether you mention, you know, the election or voting at all. I noticed it has like a little banner about like how to register to vote. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily unique to TikTok. I think compared to 2016, social media platforms are really stepping up when it comes to like trying to combat misinformation when it comes to politics and really trying to like inform their users about the election. I think TikTok, it's mostly like the little banners with COVID and all that.
So just sort of scrolling through the chat here. Is there, if anyone has any questions at any point, feel free to send them. It looks like people are just sort of like interested in like chatting about TikTok itself. Do you have a favorite TikTok?
Oh man, so many, truly. Like, I love the really unhinged ones. Okay. Something about them. I think I've been online for too much of my life. Yeah. Where my sense of humor is truly just broken. Yeah.
It's funny. Like, it's a joke.
I know. Where it's like, I'll watch someone just doing the most cracked thing, and I'm like, that's really funny. And then I'll be like, wait, what? Why is my brain like this? Yeah. I really liked NYU kids just like exposing their school for not feeding them and making their quarantine through TikTok. Like, I loved that so basically some backstory. NYU was one of the few schools that went back to normal and like had kids back on campus at the beginning of the year or beginning of the semester back in September. And New York City has a law, or I don't know if it's a law, but it's like a rule that anyone coming from out of state has to quarantine for 14 days. So kids who were coming back to dorm, like, they were not allowed to leave their dorms. They were like locked into their dorms, and they didn't have kitchens. They didn't have like, they may have had refrigerators. They couldn't like go out and get food. So the school promised to like deliver them 3 meals a day. But that whole system ended up being like a complete disaster because they were trying to keep, you know, thousands of kids alive 3 times a day. So they really messed this one up. And like would sometimes like not deliver things. They kept giving like meat to vegan students or delivering non-kosher items like ham and cheese sandwiches to kids who were like, hey, I'm kosher. So they're like, the natural response would be to be like, hey, let's fix this. But instead the response was to completely roast the school on TikTok. Like, I don't know how, but like, for some reason, for 2 days, my entire TikTok feed was just NYU kids.
That was
like,
also my feed because and that's funny because you don't live in New York and I also don't live in New York. And I was like, oh, maybe it's because I used to live in New York. So like maybe it thinks I care about this. But no, like the algorithm's just like, all right, we're getting NYU kids today.
Also not a college student, like the algorithm, I guess the algorithm was like, yeah, you sometimes interact with like college TikTok. So like, here you go. And I guess the more like NYU TikToks I watched, the more they were like, oh, you want to see some poor NYU kid like starving over the half bottle of water and like crackers they were delivered for dinner. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch, but I'm here.
So what ended up happening in the end? These poor students.
So it ended up going viral. And after like 2 days of like just people just roasting NYU and being like, how come kids aren't getting fed? Or if they are getting fed, how come like they're getting like the bare minimum of foods? Like there are some people who claim that they got moldy bread. After a few days, NYU like brought in a new delivery partner and ended up like giving people Grubhub vouchers so they could order in. And basically they were like, we're sorry for, you know, imprisoning you in these like shitty dorms. Here's a Grubhub voucher. Please eat real food.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, you know, you kind of have to admire the power of public shaming on the internet.
Of public shaming. I mean, it's kind of sad that almost seems like a new way of like demanding customer service is like, hey, like I'll DM you first, but if I don't hear back, like I will tweet about it. I will make a TikTok about it. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of a strange way of dealing with things.
It really is. Yeah. Like I recently wrote a story about this like influencer famous hair salon in LA that just like was not social distancing. They weren't wearing masks. They were really packing the salon. They weren't really adhering to guidelines. And when people commented on the salon's TikToks, like Dixie D'Amelio, Charlie D'Amelio's sister, went to that salon. When people started commenting on the TikToks being like, hey, how come, oh God, my cat just knocked over away.
No worries. If you need to take care of it, you can.
It's fine.
Okay.
But if you heard a thud, that's why. But yeah, people were like commenting like, hey, how come you weren't wearing masks? And the salon owner, instead of like responding, just turned off comments or blocked people who criticized her. So people just like started criticizing this salon on TikTok. I also, for some reason, was on Hair by Chrissy Hate TikTok. That's the account that wasn't using masks. And it's like a really similar thing to the NYU thing where I saw one TikTok, you know, making fun of Hair by Chrissy and being like, they're not wearing masks. And then for 2 days, my entire For You page was just people like insulting the salon's work, calling the hair styles bad, you know, threatening to report them to the state or to the city. So yeah, it is kind of scary, but I guess it does work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And in your article, so do you then, like, where do you come down then on, like, this form of sort of public shaming of influencers? Like, let's be clear, most of them were TikTokers, correct? Who are on this? They're TikTokers, and they have, like, a ton of influence. They have a ton of followers, like millions. Like, this is a big platform. Even though these are, like, a lot of young people, like, there's no doubting that, like, their opinions matter, right? And so what were your sort of thoughts on this in the end of this, like, little controversy?
So in the end, my take was, we should bully influencers for not taking the pandemic seriously. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the people who were going to the salon, not wearing masks, not distancing at all, also just haven't been distancing in general. Like, they've been spotted at massive rageers in LA, or going on vacation, or, meeting up with other TikTokers. And that is there's like a line when it comes to, like, canceling people, but when it comes to, like, public health, we should shame them. Like, they are prolonging this pandemic, and LA's cases are going up. So it's worth, offering genuine criticism. Yeah. And a few people I talked to for the story were like, there's genuine criticism, and then there's, like, hate and like, insulting their looks and their hair. But honestly, my take is that, the social cost of prolonging the pandemic just outweighs being insulted by someone for, calling you ugly or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and it's sort of, I guess sometimes it's interesting because it's like, in the gaming community, obviously, we're very weary of any sort of, like, mass targeted campaign. How would you say these sort of critiques maybe vary from, like, what we've seen in the past of just, like, kind of dogpiling? Yeah.
I know in gaming, especially, there's, like, a huge misogyny problem. There's a large exclusion, or, industry-wide exclusion of people of color, or, queer people. But when it came to this, it started out as people, criticizing a salon owned by a relatively wealthy woman with a large Instagram platform and a large amount of influence, and, criticizing her for not enforcing the mask rule with her employees, for not having clients wear masks, not keeping the salon at 25% capacity like the city of LA mandates. So it started out as, like, genuine criticisms and kind of devolved into people being like, also, why does she charge $4,000 for hair extensions or like, how come when she does hair, it all looks the same? And how come she only services, how come she only services white clients? And, you will very rarely see a person of color featured on her feed or a queer person featured on her feed. It's kind of all that same, like, Christian girl autumn look of that, like, long balayage hair, caramel highlights. So it kind of, like, devolved into that. But the criticism, when it started out, was genuine. It was, like, a very genuine concern for public health.
It's like, oh, hey, like, this is literally the law. And I think it's hard, like, if you have a response and your response is to just, like, start deleting comments and blocking accounts, it's not the best response, especially when, cases are spiking all over the country at, like, a very alarming rate. So...
I think there's something to be... Oh, sorry. Oh, no. I think there's something to be said about, like, when canceling goes too far or, like, what's worth canceling over or whatever. But, I mean, when it's something that's, like, literally endangering the public, like, someone should be like, hey, this is an issue. Like, fix it, Yeah.
Well, and it is interesting to see, like, TikTok is this interesting, it's not the only example of this, but it's yet another sort of case of, like, young people getting sort of thrust into celebrity. And obviously these folks are going to make mistakes. But there does come a certain point where it's like, this is also like, this is exemplary of, like, larger influencer internet celebrity culture, because how many times have we run into YouTubers who just do the most ridiculous, heinous things all too often?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that, I think there's, like, a grace period when someone is thrust into celebrity, like you said. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge when people have a huge amount of influence and a huge amount of privilege that they could either use for good or, you know, to spread really negative ideals, or, you know, they can also just keep their mouth shut and, you know,
well, and a lot of these
even deal with this.
Yeah, a lot of these people have agents at this point, you know, like they're booking like promotions with really big brands, and like they're fully, and this is something that's now interesting is like TikTok. It's not like you have TikTok celebrities. TikTok celebrities are celebrities. Like they matter. Like Charli D'Amelio to me is as well known as like maybe like Miley Cyrus for us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I'm going to fill in towards the end a couple of questions here. Ian T. Clark asks if he should be worried about his kids being on TikTok, which is kind of a big question.
When it comes to that, it's the same level of worry that you should maybe have with any social media platform or any internet access. On one hand, I mean, it depends on how old your kids are and how tech savvy they are. On one hand, you know, should a 2-year-old be or 4-year-old be on TikTok? Probably not. But on the other, like, if a teenager is on TikTok and you know, even with like the parental controls you can put on, even with, you know, limiting the amount of time they can spend on there, they're going to find a way to find the content they want to see or the content they're curious about. It's just a matter of like whether you're going to know that they're finding that content. So I think it's a really nuanced thing, but TikTok isn't necessarily more insidious than, you know, Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah. Does TikTok has, so I'm actually thinking of a specific story you wrote, and I feel like this should come, maybe we don't discuss the details of it, but my question is, does TikTok ever show things that people don't want to see? We talked a lot about how it's really good at picking stuff up. And maybe without sort of, I don't know if you know the story that I'm talking about, but maybe without mentioning the specifics of that, like, could you talk a little bit more about like that side of the algorithm?
So I can give like a kind of, I don't know, wayward answer.
Yeah.
Or like summary of the story. So the story I basically wrote was that it's really, really hard to avoid triggering content on TikTok.
Yeah.
Because of the way the algorithm works. Basically, if you, for example, come across a video that deals with a potentially triggering topic, and you engage with it, and engagement can be something as simple as, you know, liking it or watching it for a certain amount of time, the algorithm will take that as like a form of positive engagement and will continue to show you content like that. So if there's something potentially triggering, you can kind of get stuck in this like spiral of triggering content where, you know, you accidentally engage with one video for too long. So then the algorithm continues showing you that. Or a creator that you follow makes a video about that triggering content and it shows you that video anyway, because like the algorithm knows that you tend to engage with that creator's content. So there are ways to avoid it, but it can be very difficult. And some creators will, you know, use trigger warnings, but others are, you know, it's hard to enforce that on anyone. There's a lot of resistance to using trigger warnings in, you know, no matter what your political ideology is. And there's been a lot of research that really questions the efficacy of trigger warnings and, you know, whether people actually will swipe away or whether, like, you know, that lizard part of their brain will be like, no, keep watching, you know? So yeah, it is difficult, but if you don't want to see a certain triggering content, you can just like click, you know, I'm not interested in this, and really try to indicate to the algorithm that like, I don't want to see this. If you come across something triggering, I would suggest unfollowing that person or, you know, clicking, I don't want to see this, or even just like trying to flood the algorithm with like things you're interested in instead. So for example, when I came across triggering content, I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm going to look at thrifting videos. So I literally just searched up thrifting and like swiped through like 3 or 4 thrifting videos. And the next day, my entire For You page was just thrifting.
Yeah. Is it easy to break out? Like, okay, I'm speaking from personal examples. So my TikTok algorithm has very intelligently decided that the 2 things I care about are cat videos and haiku videos, the volleyball anime. And it's gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I really like these things, but these aren't the only things that I want to see. So is it just a matter of me like going to like accounts that say are like maybe like comedy accounts, or I'm like, oh, maybe I want to see Among Us content, and I just like go and I click and I interact with it and I'll start getting it?
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty much as simple as like engaging with content that isn't a cat video or haiku content. Like I got into a similar spiral recently, where being on anime TikTok led me to Beastars TikTok, which brought me to furry TikTok. And no disrespect to furries, but I don't really want to engage. I'm not part of that community. I don't want to, engage with furry content personally. Yeah. So I literally just watched like 20 minutes of Sailor Moon cosplays, and I was back on cosplay TikTok, and I was like, this is great. I left the furries.
Incredible. Just like some questions to wrap up here. Would you say TikTok is like a discovery platform, or like am I going to go there to find new interests, or am I going to go there to double down on the things I'm already interested in?
Honestly, it can be both. TikTok has 2 tabs, the following tab where like you'll only see content from creators you follow. Mm-hmm. And that can just be stuff that you're already interested in and you're like going out of your way to search up. And then the other tab is the For You tab, or For You page, like we talked about. And that's just like a mishmash of things that you already like and things TikTok may think you will like. Mm-hmm. So it can be both.
And then, okay, we have a decent amount of parents in the chat, and so they're kind of wondering, like, okay, is there YouTube? There's tags for videos that are made for kids, and that there is this weird aspect to YouTube. There's like kids YouTube and then regular YouTube, but then there's issues because kids can still get sort of pushed to like less appropriate content. We talked a little bit about this in the trigger warnings. There's nothing like that for TikTok as of right?
No.
And so
no, there isn't.
And so it's more like, it's like primarily teenagers, no kids. But I'm guessing like a lot of like tweens,
Yeah.
So I have a 12-year-old cousin who's on it a lot. Blockbuster Late Fees. You have a really long screen name. Thanks for writing in. TikTok's algorithm is uncanny at how well it congregates your For You page with things you liked after such a small amount of time on the platform, while slipping in random things that it thinks you might like. Yeah, I feel like that's the theme here.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because as much as it is about like the platform pushing a lot of content your way, you do have a lot of power to sort of see what's there, and it's almost like training your algorithm. You're like, okay, like what, but you have to have that intention there, which can be a problem because I don't necessarily go on social media to be intentional about what I see. Like, this is a new practice for me personally, being like, okay, I'm gonna mute these people on Twitter, or like actually asking myself, wait, what do I want to see?
Yeah. No, same. My first few months on TikTok, when I first started covering it, I was like, I was not at all intentional about it. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of just like engaging out, without really thinking, or, I wasn't intentionally searching for anything. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also just like a cultural thing where social media in general, like we don't view it as something we should be intentional about. Yeah. It's kind of like always a background noise or something to pass the time with. Yeah. I think the idea of something in meaningfully, intentionally engaging with any form of social media has only really come up or become popular while in quarantine, when being on social media is kind of like the only thing you can really do safely to interact with other people. So I think that has really like forced people, including myself, to reevaluate like what they're interested in, what content they want to see, who they want to see content from.
Yeah. Well, I think those ideas have changed my life like a little bit, you know, because it has been so mindless. But then once you actually it's like with anything in life, like if you put a little energy into it, if you're a little bit more intentional with it, you ask yourself, what do you want to see? You do have a surprising amount of power to like control what's there. So a couple more questions before we tie up. Bob Backwards asks, is there a TikTok success story? It seems to feed off the super niche communities, but I feel completely 100% removed from it. Has someone slipped from TikTok into the mainstream or movies or something?
I would argue that it really depends on the content of TikToks. There are a lot of people on TikTok who are getting very widely criticized right now because they're like following the traditional influencer path and not social distancing, you know. They're kind of like following that sort of I'm trying to figure out, you know, they start as TikTok dancers, they blow up, they move to LA, they all live in the same mansion, they're all throwing parties. Like, that's one.
We haven't even talked about the Hype House.
Oh man, the Hype House. You know, they're all launching music careers and landing brand deals and all that. Like, that is arguably one success story. Another success story I'm thinking about are music artists on TikTok whose song goes viral, like Doja Cat. My friend Ricky Montgomery is an artist and had his song Mr. Loverman just like go insanely viral. And then there are like Etsy artists who will make like a video of them creating their craft or creating a piece of art, and then like they'll sell out, you know, like their entire Etsy store will sell out. So I think there are different levels of success. It just depends on how you define it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The most traditional one being probably like Charli D'Amelio, who is like in a Super Bowl ad this year. And I don't know if like what her future plans are, but then like her sister Dixie D'Amelio like launched, like you were saying, like is starting to launch a bit of a music career, I guess, has like a music video and a single out. But I really like the Etsy thing is so great because it's also such like a wholesome, great part of TikTok. It's just like the small artist TikTok. And like during quarantine, especially like during the pandemic, I've been really trying to support like local smaller artists. And TikTok has been a huge way in how I discover that. Like all of my video game merch I find through TikTok and I buy through small sellers on Etsy because they're just so cute and perfect. And now my algorithm knows I like it.
Same. I have such a bad habit of, you know, like I just have like all of my favorited videos on TikTok are just artists who are like, hey, I make some art. Maybe you want to buy my art. And I'm like, I can't afford your art right now, but maybe one day I will buy your art, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share or talk about?
I don't know. If you're on TikTok, just have fun. You know, don't take it too seriously. If you have very young kids, you should maybe watch TikToks with them. Like, or not watch TikToks with them, but like, you know, supervise what they're seeing on TikTok because I think that's just like anything online. If you have like a little kid, you'd probably want to check in on what they're watching. But if you have like a teenager or like a tween, you're not going to stop them from consuming content. You're only going to like make them be more secretive about it. So it's kind of like a give and take, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it can be, you know, I think it is about that sort of human touch. And again, just being intentional with the platforms that we interact with. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can the folks here find you and your work? How can they support you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm Morgan_Sung. You can also find me writing about very fun and wild and weird stuff on Mashable. I've got some fun stories lined up that really, I think, exemplify how cursed the internet is.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and
thanks so much for inviting me.
With everyone. Before we go, I'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters. If you support us at the $5 tier, you can unlock the podcast version of this and hear us talk about TikTok to your heart's content on your commute. There will be a video version going up for everyone later this week. Thanks again to your support. All of y'all make programs like this possible, allow us to bring on really, really cool, dope people like Morgan. And if you like this, please share it and let us know. And so we can continue to make more of the content that you like. So thank you again. And everyone have a lovely evening. Bye.
Hey, bye.
MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The Deepest Dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.